Hello, everybody. TJ Schwartz here. Welcome back to the Edge and Flow podcast. I'm here with Lucas Burnley. I wanted to ask you about how your week's gone because you've got an energy about you that I'm liking.
An energy, I was a half hour late for the pod because I've been in like a vortex.
What kind
And
of
you had to
vortex?
call me and ask me where I was. So, um,
In a
yeah,
flow state vortex?
yeah, flow state vortex. I think like super weird. So like as I keep learning about ADHD, and seeing how maybe I had tendencies my whole life that I didn't really like know what they were stemming from or like how to interact with them. I've been like going down this rabbit hole of just kind of like learning and researching and trying to like figure out solutions. And so one of the big ones is like hyper focus, which I've always done my whole life. Like I get super interested in a hobby, pour everything into that for 6 months, and then we'll like completely drop it. Rinse and repeat for 40 years. So super interesting for me. Last week, maybe like over the weekend, or I guess the weekend, man, I felt this like twitch to start sketching. And I haven't been sketching very much at all. And it was literally the only thing I could basically do for 3 days.
That was so cool.
Yeah, cool in one way and like super frustrating in the other way. But the work around here is that I realize when I hyper focus around work, that is where like a lot of my creative output comes from. And over the past few years, I've actually really been trying to like stomp that down and be like, okay, I'm going to like I'm like have all these other functional tasks I need to do. So I'm not going to let just this like one thought spiral out.
Like you want to structure it more is what you're saying.
Trying to structure it, which has not worked. So what Maddie and I have been basically talking about is figuring out how to like sometimes when those hit, just to let them run. And that's what we did.
I lean that direction.
Yeah.
I think
it's hard though.
There's times where that muse runs across in front of you and you just gotta chase it. And there's obviously, nuance to that, of course, but when it really grips you, like you said, that's when some of the most productive things from a creative person come.
Seriously. And it's the muse, right? So you can't always bring it in when you want it to be there. And if you don't attend to it when it's there, like a lot of times, like I'm not my best functionally in the shop anyway, if my brain's like not in it. So I was definitely not like productive or like organizational, which I think we've talked about that. Like in my early 20s, I had like figured out that I had like these kind of 3 phases, where it was like creative, productive, or organizational, right? Organizational is just what it sounds like. You're like cleaning the shop, you're sweeping, and your brain is like set to that level of work. Mm-hmm. The productive, again, speaks for itself, kind of like that's when I could sit at a bandsaw for 10 hours and just be like completely content. And then you have like this creative side. Now I think I'm learning like different components of that. Like there, like you said, nuance in it. What was fun about this was when I sat down, I told myself that I wasn't going to solve any problems. So the goal was actually to not take any concept through the design process. All it was bouncing between like 3-minute sketches for like 2.5 days.
Nice.
That kind of wrapped itself up. Like I felt like, hey, okay, I feel like this is like closing, and it popped into CAD. And I called you a little while ago because I basically had this moment, like an aha moment, where I had taken a sketch and like fully modeled it in Fusion, and it blew my mind.
And it looks really nice. I got to tell you, like, and I'm not just saying that, like the way that you were, because we talked a couple times this week, and I kind of could sense that you had this drive, like you just something captivated you about this
Mm-hmm.
knife, and maybe not the knife itself, but the process, right? And the product is very representative of the process. I got to tell you that it looks good.
Thanks, man. It's a trip though. I remember like when I was learning to read as a little kid, like having this moment with phonics where the words started, like I stopped seeing letters and started seeing words.
Hmm.
That's what it felt like in Fusion over the last, like I've been in there for probably 2 days, and I had some examples of the work that you and I had done together to like go in and like try to understand. I had a bunch of memento-esque notes, like with all these like rules and like, highlighted sections. Still incredibly hard, like when you're trying to piece it together on something fresh. But I tried to kind of basically do what we discussed in the podcast last week, like going over your process. I'm like, okay, like I just need to make logical decisions about like what the constraints do and what they're related to. And about like 8 hours in, I started experiencing like the power of the constraints by I would make a change and it would like update everything in the
Talking about
drawing.
sketch constraints
Yeah,
and fusion.
specifically
Mm-hmm.
with sketch constraints,
Mm-hmm.
right? But like building a feature, constraining that in a way so that when I adjust my base sketch, like it's adjusting like the solid model down the road and not like self-destructing.
Mm-hmm.
And it started to like click faster. I worked until like 1:30 in the morning last night. And
Nice.
it's crazy because there was big periods where I was just kind of cruising. And then the last steps of like modeling the blade grind, that's been 14 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just took me time to understand like the process, and then to like actually see it at the end just been amazing.
Yeah. I'm
So
I'm happy to hear it, man. Let the CAD flow through you, man. It's there's CAD haters out there, and I can respect that. I can understand where that comes from, but it, like you said, it's easy to look at CAD and think it's like a crutch, or it's gonna like somehow narrow your field of view from a creative standpoint.
you're gonna make knives like a machinist
I think that's
is like the
only
old fear.
that's only temporarily until you start to see the letters as words,
Yep.
as per your metaphor. Is like
Yep.
if you're only looking at the letters, you're going to write like a robot.
Yep.
But when they look like words, you're going to write like Shakespeare, hopefully,
Well, and
you know.
that was one of the cool things in this process was where I like forced myself to do the work in CAD. A lot of times like my sketches are basically what I want, right?
Mm,
This is a fixed blade, which made it easier theoretically that I could have like fully drawn it basically the way that I wanted and then just like modeled it kind of a little. If I was doing it in Rhino, old school, it would have been, I would have just done 2D line work, and that's where I would have generated my tool paths off. This one, I wanted to force myself to actually do the design work in the software. And with this experience specifically, I'm seeing a different level of like creativity that is possible. It's not that I can't draw it, it's this version of like like rapid iteration, viewing it as a solid model.
mhm.
It's different.
And it's hard to believe, but it sounds counterintuitive. But you're right in that, like, it seems like sketching is the most quick, iterative way to
Yeah.
design. But if you get to where you have, like we talked about in the CAD episode a couple weeks back, if you get to where you have the design at least roughed in,
Yep.
the actual tweaks and changes and modifications you're way faster in CAD than you are on paper, at least for me,
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, that needs to be a little longer. Takes 2 seconds, a little longer,
Yep.
a little
Yep.
skinnier, a little skinnier. You know, it's like once you get to the refinement stage, the speed with which you iterate, and like you were sending me how you were laser cutting profiles and stuff, it's like you just couldn't iterate that fast if you were like cutting it out of acrylic with like a
No.
bandsaw, you know, you just
And I mean,
couldn't do
it's
it.
like, it's fast, right? Like it's super. Okay. I take my piece of paper, I cut it out. I like spray adhesive it onto a piece of plexi. I go to the bandsaw. It might be 10 minutes, but it's not 10 minutes if I'm running it on the laser,
Mhm.
and I can cut 2 examples at the same time. And like, so basically just doing form tests, like once I started to get into where I liked the knife, then I spent the majority of the time in Fusion was actually doing the design work, just minor tweaks of the profile, right?
Mhm.
After that point, then it was like starting to add the detail work, like adding jimping and like adding chamfers. But even that started to make more sense because I saw like the progression of sketches. So like, okay, I have my base profile sketch. Like once that's like dialed in and locked down, then I can like start to add the other features. And in the past, I've kind of like, especially working in Rhino, like I kind of just go in and start drawing, and I have like too much information in too short of a timeline, all tied to like one sketch,
Mhm.
or layer or whatever. Um, so this, man, it feels like a full paradigm shift.
I'm happy to hear it.
Now I just need muscle memory.
Mhm.
I think like if I do, I think if I can do like 3 more fixed blades, increasing level of like components and complexity, I think that I'll have
Yeah,
like, I'll be able to get through the process like pretty consistently.
for sure.
Um, I had asked you like next week you're going to come in and basically kind of diagnose like what I did, like do post action on what I
Mhm.
did. Cause I
Mhm.
know I made mistakes, and there were areas where like, it's like, I know this isn't the right way of doing it, but I'm like getting the desired result. But I feel like they're pretty minor. Like
Mhm.
I think I'm like 90% correct.
Yeah, yeah, and we had mentioned before how we had jumped on Zoom a few times and we talked about Fusion and shown you a few things. So it is one of those things because I remember us doing that, and it's one of those things like you said, spending 14 hours on the bevel. It kind of like you just kind of have to grind into it and just
Yeah,
kind of, and it seems like it's clicking. I bet a bunch of the stuff we talked about is probably resurfacing, and it's
dude,
like, oh, that's why this breaks or whatever.
I know it's there. Like
Mm,
it was, I was remembering things as we were going, where I'd be like, okay, no, like that's not the way to do this. Like I need to define this, like, oh, there needs to be like this offset. I'm like, this is like a year ago, but it's still like rattling
mhm,
around in there.
mhm,
I don't know. Super, super, super interesting, both from the standpoint of like the work that I did for myself, the fact that I now have a new model that I'm really excited about, and that I was able to actually just let the deep work happen. Like I just keep realizing like I'm not good at multitasking. I've tried so hard to kind of like be everywhere all at once. Like there's times when you need to do it, but goal right now is just like let let that like hyper focus go.
mhm.
Much easier if it's like centered around things in work, but like it's the same thing. Like if I get bit by forging, and that's 2
Yeah.
weeks, like it really doesn't matter
You
because it's
can't
still
fight it.
work.
Yeah,
Can't I don't think I should fight it. I
exactly,
can,
yeah.
but I think that you get a less than ideal outcome on whatever you are like replacing it with. And I think it just like creates like an itchiness that I'm not like interested in.
No,
So
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah,
rolling hyper focus.
that's good.
So I'm excited. I'm wound up.
No, I that's why I launched this talking about your energy, the vibes I'm getting here are awesome. Like, it just felt
Oh
like a
man.
design exploration week that I only talked to you a couple times, but I could just sense that you were going. So,
It's wild how it works. Like I mean, no concept really of time not hungry, have to be like called and told to do things or reminded.
Mm-hmm.
And if forcing myself to like stop at the end of the day.
That's a good feeling.
So it's pretty
I
good.
mean, it can be taken to an absurdity, but
Yeah.
when you really get absorbed like that, and for me and you both design work that we do, there's nothing better, because when you have that feeling where it's like you've been at it for 10 hours and you
Yeah.
feel like you just started, like you feel the time just flew by. There's really no better feeling. Like it just feels like your work is better than it could possibly be in those moments.
Yeah. It's been so long since I've actually felt that. Like since we've been in Bend, I haven't designed a new folder that I've actually made, which, like I'm not like crazy, don't have, never have crazy output, but it's usually 1 or 2 folders a year.
Mhm.
So the fusion component in a way, I think has been like, I've known that I want to go there, but it was so daunting that like, I'm like, well, I can design it in Rhino, but I don't want to design it in Rhino. And I can muscle through it in Fusion, but I don't really have the time. And so it just was like limbo.
Mhm.
Now I think like I'll do 1 or 2 more fixed blades. I've already got a folder project started in Fusion. And I think it's just understanding the modeling environment. I think that it's almost the same as like when I would tell people that were just starting to build folders coming from fixed blades. It's like everything is the same except for like 3 components. Like you have a stop pin, a lock, and a pivot.
Mhm. Yeah.
Other than that, like it's just a knife.
Mhm.
So I kind of feel like in the CAD environment, I can wrap my head around that being the same way. Like if I understand the physical like process of modeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
coming from Rhino, like similar deal. It's like
yeah,
you're going from 2D to 3D, and so it's like
yeah,
there is some institutional knowledge you've got around CAD.
yeah.
It's just adapting it.
And bad habits because I never really like you're so precise in the way that you work, and I never had that. So it's like I just kind of it's like I get there, but like I was never the ability for Fusion to actually you update one sketch and it updates your cam. Like that is mind blowing. I've spent so much time going back and forth from Rhino to my cam software just because I wanted to tweak a line.
Yeah, no, that's true. And
Like,
an example of that paying off for me was like I have my Kydex molded and then it's CNC machined and it drills the holes for the clip position.
mm-hmm.
And every Kydex isn't as rigid and perfect as like machining a block of aluminum. So like in CAD, you would think that these holes being drilled would be in the exact right spot, because I don't know if it's like Kydex shrinkage or
Mm-hmm.
something,
Some
but
type of
it's
flex.
not always exactly in the right spot, and it seems to consistently be in the wrong spot. So I
Hmm.
would just change locations and like walk it in, and it was like in the CAD design sphere is where I'm making these changes, and
Right.
it's walking in on the machine running, and it's like I'm not even going into the cam other than just to post the code. Like the cam is
Yeah.
just the same, and it's just
Yeah.
I can
It's
move those holes around without any issue. Really,
it's too good.
it's really handy.
There's a lot of freedom in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. It's really nice. I'm 3D printing the knife now in 2 halves. And I'm gonna glue it together because I want to see it like everything modeled.
Hmm.
Um, and then I'm gonna set it aside because I would be able to spend probably like the whole rest of the week just like messing with the super minor details. And I would rather just let this be like, okay, this is version 1,
Hmm.
which is actually, I think, version 28. And then go sit down with you next week, go through it, dial in the process, and then just like start over.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I'm excited to be done for a little while.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Um, let's talk about your downshift.
Yeah, it's good.
I didn't
So
hear from you at all.
no, no, yeah. Well, I sent you a couple pictures, but I
Oh, that's right.
didn't
Yeah.
talk about it. But
Photos. Yep.
yeah, I did go to the Warhawk Air Museum. It actually was more than I was expecting, as far
Really?
as it's a historical museum about war aircrafts, and it's in Nampa, Idaho, and it's like it's not really known to, I mean, I'd heard about the place and I'd seen like maybe a picture or two, but I was thinking maybe they've got like one or two obscure old planes that are maybe operational, maybe not, like maybe a small showcase,
Mm-hmm.
alongside those. It's substantial. Like it's a legit destination. I mean, anybody
Oh,
coming through
wow.
Boise should probably go to this place. And they have like probably 10 or more operational war era aircrafts from different eras that are fully like they look brand new. I mean, they have World War II airplanes, they have Cold War airplanes, they
Yeah.
have World War One airframes, they have Vietnam. They had a Huey helicopter, mint condition, sitting in there. They had, I mean, like two large, like warehouse size rooms full of airplanes, and they
Huh.
would have like a corner of the room that was like the Vietnam War, and they would have like a fighter plane, the Huey, and two perfectly restored like 1960s station wagons,
Huh.
and in between them. So
Like showing life.
it was like the image of like the late 60s Vietnam era. And so,
Wow.
yeah, and then they had all these glass cases where it was like veterans or veterans' families from these different eras would donate their family's heirlooms, and like if they had a husband or a dad or something that was fighting in this conflict, they would put their your whole uniform in the glass with like all their pictures and like all their kind of memorabilia and some really personal stuff, like it might be like a pack of cigarettes from like World War II or like something that they carried with them all the time. And so it's like there's like a bio, and so it's like these different eras with these different soldiers and like these different airplanes. And they had a right in the middle of one of the rooms, they had a actual like functional MiG fighter jet from like a MiG 21, which is a Russian,
Crazy.
yeah, a Russian like state of the art aircraft from the Cold War. And it was like every other country in the world was lusting after this airplane in the Cold
Right.
War. And it's like they have one sitting there, and it's not like there's nothing fake about any of it. It's like that's a real, like they could actually fly this thing, because apparently they do air shows where they take all these planes and they wheel them out and they fly them. And so like
Wow.
the P-51 Mustang is sitting there, which is America's sort of like preeminent World War II fighter at the end of the war, and it's got literal oil pans underneath it, like catching oil drips from the engine and like from the airframe, because it's like it's a real plane. I mean, it's not faked up. I mean, they could like
Right.
roll it out and fly it
Mustang
away.
is like the classic.
Yeah, and
That's like the sexiest design ever.
yeah, so cool, dude. And that airplane, like you could, it's like the wing is like over your head, like you're pretty much under it, and it's like
Yeah.
roped off. But inside the ropes, there's like it's like all the gear from World War II soldiers like laid out around it in like kind of a circle, and you're looking at it from like a
Wow.
few feet away.
Did you get any
Super cool.
backstory as to like, is this like someone's private collection, like turned museum?
It
Is the like, what is it?
I need to ask more questions about it. I've got my brother-in-law is like really into aviation, and he loves this museum. I haven't asked him much about it, but he would probably know. But I did read a couple little plaques and stuff. There were definitely, it was a private entity, like
Mm-hmm.
probably some wealthy couple or something that was really into aircrafts and maybe bought a couple of these planes. And then there's like a whole board of like donations of people
Yeah.
that have donated, and some of the money. I mean, there's a whole board of people that have donated more than 200K. So it's like millions of donations to make this happen. So it's a totally private thing.
It's
But
pretty cool. Yeah, I'd
yeah.
love to know more backstory if you find out. That's
Mhm.
always interesting to me, like where interest is sparked enough and you're like, okay, like we have some disposable income. I'm super interested in like this airplane. I can buy the plane, or I could start like a nonprofit
Yeah.
and we could do air shows with the plane. Like I always
Yeah.
wonder like where the drive is.
Yeah. I'd love to hear more about that
Did
for
you
sure.
eat? Didn't you say there's like a cafe there?
It's not in the museum. It's like a stone's throw from it.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it's a cafe that's in an old air tower, like a retired air
Nice.
tower.
Oh, like up?
Yeah. Yeah. Like 3 stories up with windows, like panoramic, like the angled windows that you see that are
Dude,
kind of like looking down.
that's
And
fun.
yeah, and it's a like a breakfast joint up there, and that's where you can sit and at that cafe when they're taking these planes off, because you're about 200 feet from the runway. And
Oh, wow.
I was told that this summer, every summer they do this show, and I definitely want to check that out. But
Dude.
yeah, it was so cool. Like it surprised me in every way. Like the amount of hardware they had in there was shocking, and they also had like they had enough diversity going on in there that it wasn't like totally just like rah rah America. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally down for, I'm an American and stuff. It's cool. But like they had like some of those cases were just like full Nazi uniforms and like
Mm-hmm.
full Russian uniforms. And like
Right.
it was like a true, like, this is just war
Actual cross
history in
section. Yeah.
general. Yeah.
Dude, I
It
love
was
that.
cool.
Nice. How long were you there?
Uh, at least an hour, but I didn't really even look at the time. I mean, more than that probably. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, walked up and down through everything and whatnot, and then I left, and I wasn't sure where I was going to go because I couldn't walk from there. I mean, it's at the airport, so there's not really anywhere to go. So I drove. I went down Eagle Road, which, if anyone knows in Boise, is like it's the busiest road in Idaho, or the busiest area, basically. And I just kind of checked out a shop or two. I didn't really see anything that caught my eye, but I just got to thinking about a lot of things, and I decided just to keep driving. And there's a big loop I can make to get back to where I live, and I came in on the freeway and I went out the back way. And then I just drove on this. There's a dirt road halfway back on this back way that I'd never gone up, that I'd always wanted to. Drove up that. So it went from the museum more or less into going back to the outdoors. Cause like
Mm-hmm.
really that's what mostly I enjoy on a day like this. And so I ended up driving until I hit snow and turned around, and then got some lunch and all that. And it was really good. But the I know we like beat on it, but like the process is the product thing.
Mm-hmm.
I I was thinking a lot about that because like when I went through that museum, I was thinking a lot about like America's role in World War II, and how like the process is the product might be the phrase to describe like America's how what we contributed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it just I was like connecting that it like historically and stuff, and like also poking holes in it, like why is that not true and stuff, and like I was just kind of like diving into that, just driving. It was cool.
Dude, that's great. Any like different, I don't know, different like takeaways or like
Well,
just in general?
the
Like
big
as you now you've got 2 days, you knew what you were going into this time. You're like, all right, like you knew what you did the first time. You went right back to driving though.
yeah.
So that means that like probably right now that's just what you need.
Yeah, honestly, I think the thing about driving for me is when I drive, I'm not able to focus on anything because you have to drive. I'm not able to like look at my phone. I'm not able to read a book. You could listen to a podcast, but it's like it forces me to think. And airplanes do the same thing to me. It's like if I'm sitting on a commercial airline, like I just start thinking, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like it feels like I never have time to think about stuff that's a little bit more abstract. It's like I'm always thinking about the kids, or making sure these knives are looking good, sharpening. Like it's very compartmentalized. But
Yep.
when I drive is probably when I think the most like introspectively.
Yeah.
And so it's like driving is just a license to do that.
I
And
love it.
so
Yeah.
that's where I just kind of tend to get I get in the car,
You're
and
just
then
like pulling off any guardrails,
yeah,
basically. You're just
it's
like, all right, your brain's going to move on its own,
mhm,
but there's nothing
yeah,
like you don't have any
there's no
direction that you need to really
interference.
worry about. Yeah.
Yeah.
No interference. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I thought a lot about that kind of stuff, and just generally about I mean, I was thinking about work a lot, but not in the sense of like, okay, what knife am I going to build? How am I going to fix this process or whatever? It was
Mm-hmm.
more like macro, just kind of philosophical, like thinking about what am I trying to do and stuff. And it was productive. It felt really good.
Yeah. Nice, man.
Yeah. So
2 down.
I already decided what I'm doing on the next one.
Let's hear it.
I uh I have like a very nostalgic feel when I think about Boise State because I was there for 2 years, and that was like where my
Oh,
knife career kicked off. And I used to love sitting in the sauna. Like the sauna is like my happy place. And I haven't sat in a sauna in like 5 years because there's just no access around here.
uh huh.
And I was like, you can go to the campus and just pay like a day rate and like
Dude,
use
I love
their
it.
their rec center. I'm like, I'm gonna go back to the sauna where I used to sit and think about knives when I was 18 years old,
Full circle.
and just like walk around campus and like kind of like go on that nostalgia trip. Maybe go to like a bar or
Dude.
restaurant from college. Like
Oh, I love it.
that's what I'm gonna do.
That's like right up my alley.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Dude, I love sauna too.
Oh, I
It's
love it.
amazing.
I want to build one. I really want to build one.
Dude, they're actually like, not to go off a crazy tangent, but like there's a bunch of companies that have them like pretty nice and like small and inexpensive. Like borderline, like, yeah, you could build one cheaper, but like, can you build one cheaper than you can build the knives you need to like pay for a sauna? Dude, sauna.
Yeah.
I got a spot picked out in my yard for one.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. Just a bunch of cedar planks, man.
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy.
Did you go around?
I would really want to.
Yeah.
If I had the right like place to put it. Yeah. I had a buddy in high school he was a big time wrestler, and they use saunas for like for dropping weight, dehydrating themselves essentially. And they built one because his dad was like a big wrestler. Like the whole family is wrestlers. So they built a sauna with a wood stove, and that was like my first introduction to saunas. And I didn't wrestle, but like when I was at his house, we'd use it.
It's like just one more thing to make you slow down.
Oh yeah.
Like, just sit here and sweat.
And this isn't like
can't do anything else.
A health and well-being podcast, but I do think I tend to believe the things I read about the sauna, which is like it's really, really good for you in a lot of ways. I'm not qualified to speak on that, but I think it is good for you.
Yeah, you feel.
Yeah, yeah.
Not medical.
Seems
advice.
like there is a lot of data, but I don't know how to read data. I'm just a knife maker.
What? Let's see. What else? Okay, so those are two big ones. You've got. You're still in the process of having your employee.
Yeah, so he's gone for this week because he's at a training for his Cerakote.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so I do feel how the productivity dropped when he left. Like I had like a visceral reaction, like, wow, this is slower.
Noticed it.
Yeah, for sure. And so, yeah, it'll be good to have, like I said, he's not like a full timer, but it'll be good to have him around again. So yeah, this coming week, he's going to be back on Kydex. I made some big leaps in my Kydex game because I was doing more hand sanding than I was happy with, like not with a grinder. I mean, literally like by hand, to try to just touch up certain things. And I'd been meaning to get a flap disc that's Scotch Brite.
Oh yeah,
for like a bench grinder, which is how like most holster shops do it. And I tried Scotch Brite as a belt on a belt sander. Does not work as well. Doesn't work hardly at all. And so I finally got my bench grinder set up, and I tried that, and holy cow.
Did I see you with it wedged in your drill press?
That's right, dude.
Heathen.
Yeah. So we talked about me getting rid of the drill press because I was like, I need to put the bench grinder there, and I don't have anywhere else to put it. And so I put the bench grinder on the table of the drill press, and it works.
I thought that was pointed directly at me, because I've
works.
Always said the drill was one of the most critical tools.
Gotta stay.
Like, here you go.
Yep.
Here's my new bench.
Yep. It works perfectly. I mean,
nice.
Yeah.
Those flap discs are awesome. Super uniform. They don't remove too much material. Just like helps blend.
Yeah.
It's actually something I would like both on the Kydex side and on leather side. I would love to see some high functioning holster shops. Kydex I've seen a little bit. It's always been interesting to me because when you look at knife sheaths, they're usually not actually made like holsters. And holsters, like a nice holster, the quality and like the fit, like the wet molding, like there's so many things that they do that are so nice. I always just feel like knives should basically be sheathed like a holster.
Yeah. It's something I want to, when I do have more space, there's like half a dozen things with the Kydex I want to do. Like I want to go to vacuum instead of foam.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's for sure faster. And then also I think it gets more definition.
Definition, I think. Is it faster? I would say definition more important than speed. So
the only thing that I think makes it faster is if you press a Kydex like form in between two pieces of foam, you're insulating it, and so it's just taking longer to cool down. And
whereas if you're in a vacuum bag,
it's just a thin film, and especially if you had like cool air, like a fan blowing across it, like that would cool probably.
So you just have to be super dialed because you don't have a lot of working time. There's no like adjustment.
Yeah,
and then certain types of sheaths, it really wouldn't work for. Probably as well, like foldovers.
Yeah, foldovers would be a problem.
Foldovers anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's right now the thing that sets my pace on Kydex is the cooldown, because I can make a sheath faster than it can cool down.
Yeah.
And so I either run 2 presses to make that all work, like 2 foam presses at once, or I go to vacuum. 2 foam presses is probably going to work good for a while.
Yep. Just
But
alternate, back
yeah,
and forth.
yeah,
That's like Tom Crine. He's super fast.
yeah,
And it's like he'll set up like a few presses. He likes to set them on, I think he puts them on stools so that
nice.
they're like fast and kind of move around. But
I need
he's
to do
like,
something like that. Yeah, it's
yeah,
the foam press I've just gotten fast enough, and that's where I'm wanting I'm getting my employee trained up on Kydex, and right now it's not pressing, because if he's doing the Kydex, he's only made like a handful, so he's not
mm-hmm,
fast enough to where expanding the actual foam, the amount of sheaths, it wouldn't help us right now if he's doing them, but he'll
mm-hmm.
get faster obviously, and then he'll eventually get to the point where I'll probably have to run 2. But
Processes like that are actually an area I think that like crossover between like you're making your Kydex in a very modern way,
mhm.
but the guys who did a lot of Kydex manually, like some of their tricks, I feel like the like manual production side and automated production side, like I just feel like there's a lot of learning that can go back and
Oh yeah,
forth.
for sure.
Just because if you're not running automation and you're fast, you're doing something right. Like
Yeah.
who is it? Is it Blenheim Forge that I keep sending you videos from?
Yeah,
They're making
yeah.
like kitchen knives
Their
over
forge stuff.
in Europe, right? But when you look at the way they set up their jobs, dude, like either they're all super smart or there's like a process engineer, but the way that they fixture and like batch and queue, like, and just little like time saving and like shaping and clamping components and stuff. Like you look and you're like, that's like as efficient as you could do it for
Yeah.
like beating this out of a piece of steel.
Yeah, that I love
Super
it.
cool.
They had that one thing where they were grinding a cleaver, and it was
Mm-hmm.
pre-forged, so it was like a rough cleaver that they were
Yep.
bevel grinding, and
You
they
just had
had
it on a
it
stick.
attached to a 1x2 board that went all the way to the floor, and so the pivoting sweep of grinding the
Yeah.
fixture is from the floor, not from a work rest. I've
Yep.
never thought of that or heard of
And
that or anything.
he doesn't have to hold it up. He doesn't, and it's a big knife with a good amount of material. So he's just able to basically like lay this bar up against the grinder and then pivot across. Dude,
It's crazy.
super
So cool.
smart. I think they like I saw like a picture too. I forget the guy's name, but they're like, Steve's got his board back. Like we got some of these cleavers to grind, and you're like,
Nice.
it just there's for almost every job we do that we repeat, man, there is a way to just create some repeatability around it. But we've talked about Bob T before, Terzawola, and that's if he had to do a job like more than once, I feel like that was the criteria. Like he would just fixture for it. And so you go to a
Mhm.
shop and he's got all these cool little fixtures like wrapped around the walls. You have to enjoy it, and you have to like see like where the efficiency can
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Lock fitting is like a prime example of that, where there's so many different ways to do it. I finally ended up on flat milling them hard, which is awesome. And it's like alleviated so many problems.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have not lock fit a knife yet because I haven't built a folder.
Dude, can't wait.
One of these days.
One of these days.
I do think it's probably the next shop. That's I
Yeah,
think
I
I've
think
said that
that's
before.
reasonable. I don't
I
see a
just
I don't see a reason. You have such a good like product line and you're developing it. Throwing a folder in there would really mess with your production.
yeah, it's just so different than what I'm doing, and I'm fine with that and I'm excited for that, but I would need the space to
Yeah.
like set up like lock fitting. I would have nowhere to do that without like
Yeah.
something I have to assemble and disassemble every time or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's good.
But I'm excited because my confidants are going to start shipping tomorrow for the first time.
Dude, that's wild. That was a fast turnaround.
It was fast, not from when I took the pre-orders necessarily, but as far as when they got back to me
Yeah.
finally from the loop through the supply chain, like I feel really good about it. And having Steven over helping me in the shop was a big part of that. But I was really excited with how the Kydex went. I was really excited with how finishing has been going. Couple little tricks, couple little things that I've kind of got into that I had to solve, but that's kind of what you expect with every new model. And but yeah, it's time to rock and roll, man. Like I've got enough knives to keep me busy for a few days sharpening and shipping. And the
Mm-hmm.
last thing I was doing today was machining the last of the handle sets.
Wow.
So all the sheaths are done for all orders. All the handles will be done for all orders tomorrow. All the tangs will be done for all orders except for sharpening, because what I'm going to it's hard to store sharpened knives
Yeah,
safely.
yeah.
And so I usually sharpen like 10 and then
Yep.
assemble and ship them, and then sharpen 10 more and then assemble and ship them, and then 10 more. So that's what I'll start doing by midday tomorrow.
Any like, since this is new model, primarily same process, did you run into any like glitches or anything you didn't see coming down the line during production?
Um there was, as far as the bevel grinding goes, I was wondering if I had these ground on a Seatman and tactile turn, and they did a
Mm-hmm.
really nice job. And I was wondering how much I would have to stone, if at all, to not have any grind lines in the finish. And the answer is like a fair bit. Because
Really?
because if you look at like most production knives, like they'll have some lines in them from these types of machines, Berger, Seatman. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
some lines there, and I've kind of established like an expectation with my stuff that it won't have that, and so I was curious about that. So I kind of suspected that it would be just like this, and so there's no issue. But yeah, the stoning is quite a bit of work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At scale.
yeah.
It's a lot of knives.
Yeah. So I've been doing quite a bit of that. I had to like race like last week. I had to stone as many as possible because Steven does all my blasting on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to get him blasting, because if he was gone, then I would be blasting him, which is
Right.
fine. But it was like he's been doing such a good job with that. I like stoned as many as possible, got him all blasted, then he left. Then I tumbled him, which, by the way, another little tangent, those tumble cages that I set up
Mm-hmm.
may have been a divergent thing that may not have been necessary. I'm now learning, because I
Really?
think the problem I was trying to solve was actually the wrong problem. So I was thinking I was getting errant scratches. I was thinking that the knives were scratching each other. It was not the knives. It was the media, because
Yeah.
the media was too new.
Yeah.
And I knew that was possible,
Yeah.
but as the media broke in, the scratches went away, and I went ahead and ran a pile of confidants in there just to see like what would happen, just experimentally, and it worked. And so it was the new media that was causing me those issues, not the
Yeah.
tips of other knives.
I still think the cages over time might serve. I guess I don't have enough experience with the Mr. Debers. So in like my Raytech tumblers, parts will stick together like
Mm,
capillary action.
yeah,
It's just a matter of when.
yeah.
And so like how many knives you have to have stick together and
So
finish weird.
it's a good question. I put 20 in there with a zip tie in all of them, and ran for
Zip
two.
tie will do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Zip tie will probably, you
that
just need something in there to
Yeah,
stop it.
and that's what I always did before the cages, but I was worried about this tip
The
scratching.
scratches,
But
right?
yeah, 20 of them in the tumbler in the Mr. Deber at once, all with zip ties, looks to be good. And so I might put a few more. I might kind of start to play with that, but 20 is good. And
25. Yeah.
my last tumbler, I was doing like 3 knives at a time.
Yeah.
So the payoff, I was telling my wife, I was like, that tumbler was the right move,
Yeah.
150%.
I did
So
that big, like 8-inch bladed fixed blade a while back, and I put it in my tumbler, and I was like, that was ridiculous. Like, I'll get a Mr. Deber just for when I
it,
do like occasional big
it,
stuff. It just makes so much
it's
sense.
good. It's a good machine, and I haven't had issues with it sticking to the sides. I haven't. I've
Nice,
tumbled a lot of knives. It hasn't been an issue.
nice.
So, yeah, with a zip tie, I got like big zip ties. I think part of it is like a lot of people get like cable ties, which can be
Yep,
like really dainty. I got like big fat ones, and it depends on
yep,
how big the hole is that you can put it
yep.
in. But I've got 1/4 inch holes, and I've got zip ties that are almost a 1/4 inch wide. And so
That's what I use. Like for Cypops, I use those are probably 3/8 wide, and they're removable.
Quick
They're
release.
awesome.
That,
Yeah,
I
so it's a
think we
quick
got the same
release.
ones. I
Yeah,
think I saw yours and actually
yeah,
looked them
they're
up.
great.
Yeah.
I've had some of them going for years now.
Yeah. And I think that rigidity, like a stiff zip tie,
Yep.
is actually prevents it from sticking to the side.
Yep.
So it works good, man. The tumbler's really working out.
Nice. Any other? I feel like this is turning into another random sode, but
Maybe they all
is there
are.
any other equipment that's like on your radar right now?
Probably in this shop, the only thing left. I did just get a what's it called, a ultrasonic cleaner, which is
Oh,
like
nice.
$200 Amazon,
Yep.
whatever, not a big deal. I've got the hardness tester. The only thing left, I think, before the next shop is probably I will go with a screw compressor while I'm here,
Yeah.
and that's about it right now, because everything is working. I think I was telling you today, like everything is working so good right now in my process. The only thing is the compressor is so loud. It's so annoying.
Yeah.
So tired of it.
I spent so much time with just like a Home Depot, like stand up. Just it's such a gnarly
Just
sound.
killer, dude. Just
Yeah.
brutal.
Feel it in your teeth.
And I wear, ear protection. It doesn't bother me that much, but it's like my wife will try to say something to me, or like the kids can't come out in the shop. Like it's just this pounding like all day out there. And
Yeah.
I do use a lot of air, so I don't ever maximize. Like I'm not using a ton of CFM, but if you have two CNC machines going, a little bit of blasting, and like using my air nozzles a lot, it's like
Yeah.
it's running every 5 minutes going.
Yeah.
So
Just going.
it's annoying.
Yeah. Nice. I think I'm gonna do an induction forge. It's like
Nice.
it's such a low buy-in, and have you seen them?
The coils.
They're so freaking cool.
Yeah, they are.
I have some like small forge projects that
So
like I want to try.
what's the
That'd be
downside?
perfect.
Because it seems to me that would like totally surmount any reason to have an actual forge. Is there a downside?
It's from what I know, and like I'm sure someone will tell me I'm wrong, but it's mostly like localized, like zone heating.
So-
But they do things like build taco coils. So like imagine the shape of a taco, but like coiled copper tubing,
mhm.
so that if you want to put something inside, you can actually just like go in the front. It's like a C,
Instead of a
and then
circle.
you have like this, like a taco shape around, so like you can heat up pretty broad sections. um I just think it's cool.
It does look cool, dude.
Like
It's really cool.
and again, like with where technology is, like you can go on buy like, what is it, like US solid or something like that. It's like $1,000.
That's not bad. What kind of
Not
power
bad.
does that thing draw? Like what are you
It's like running like a TIG welder, like 220. You run a TIG
220
cooler
30
on it.
amp probably?
Yeah, 30 amp.
That's not bad.
So, and I want to like, my shop is small. I would like to keep forging through the summer. And I just realized like I kick my forge on, it warms the entire second floor of the shop up now.
Mhm.
I mean, when we're at 95 degrees,
It's going to be rough.
I can use the induction. And a lot of the stuff that I want to make is small anyway. So I look at it, I'm like, well, man, it seems like the right tool.
Yeah.
And I'm obsessed right now with like the act of forging, but in modern ways.
Yeah.
Like I really like the crossover.
Mhm.
So
That's
that's
cool.
the only thing on my plan right now.
Cool. That's
I'm psyched because I'm using my 3D printer.
Yeah.
That's like that was where some of the fusion stuff started recently, was like I think you told me you had like a miscellaneous shop tools category. So I just went in and I created a folder, and then I was like, oh, I need this. I need like this little ferrule for a screwdriver, and like, oh, I need this mount for my Fordham. And man, it's where the 3D printer really excels.
So there's a 3D printer that John Saunders just posted about that has piqued my interest because we both have Prusas.
Yep.
Prusa's awesome. Great company. Really like my printer. Super reliable. Printing has come a long way in the like 7 years since I bought mine.
Yeah.
This bamboo printer that he posted, I looked up the specs. It's like apparently 80% faster than like a Prusa. Like we're talking,
that's a big margin.
Yeah, we're talking way, like I watched it run. I mean, it's like the brother Speedio of like seeing of 3D printing. And for me, speed is more important than accuracy,
Totally.
because most of the stuff that I'm doing is like a tumbler cage, right? It's like I
Right.
don't care. It's not a figurine that I'm going to paint for like Warhammer 40K
Right.
or something. It's like, no, this is just a tool. And so speed, I could see getting that. It's only like $1,200, and
Ooh.
it's actually fully assembled, full enclosure. It's got like ton of features. Like, man, 3D printing is just accelerating.
Still filament?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Prusa just released a new one.
they're the big one.
Yeah. They released the like 4.
Yeah.
So
I need to look into that. I've been so out of touch with it because I've liked mine for so long. Reliability wise, it's been so good.
yeah,
But
pretty fun. What else, man? Should we wrap it?
yeah, I think
Anything
so.
you want to touch on?
Yeah, I think that's it.
All right.
I did have Jesse Jaros.
Yeah.
He reached out and said that he's doing a downshift these days.
Nice.
And there was another person that reached out. I think I got another message. So via our last email, people have been doing it and working on it. So
I love that.
we wanna hear from you guys. Try it out, and if it's not a whole day, that's fine. But like, give it a shot. I hope
Yeah.
we've
Give yourself some time.
it shown you some examples of what you could possibly do, but also just like the overall philosophy behind it is all I really want to portray, and then people can take with it and do what they want.
It's a good plan. And yeah, if there's anything you guys want to know about or want us to like dig into, shoot us a message. Always looking for talking points. I still want to do like a listener like Q&A, like just have them send in questions and we just spend an episode answering.
Oh yeah,
That seems pretty easy.
it does.
You want to try to put that together somehow?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do it. Okay. Guys, thank you for listening. If you wouldn't mind leaving us a review somewhere, sharing the pod goes a long way.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one, everybody. Peace.